We are inviting everyone from the Financial Security for All community of practice and other interested parties to join us on this web meeting to talk about the upcoming Extension Pre-conference at the AFCPE Symposium. I guess technically it would be a pre-symposium meeting. So we've been having this for a few years. I've been honored to serve on the planning committee for a few years. This is our regular monthly time for our community to get together for a webinar. So we thought it would be interesting to do a little preview of what the webinar is going to be about, talk to you a little bit about how we decided what to put on the agenda for the meeting, and give you some things to think about between now and November. So thanks everyone for being here. I'm going to pop up the slides and share those. Feel free to put questions or comments in the chat as we go along. We will have some time for questions, comments, and discussions at the toward the end. I'm pleased to have with me today Jesse Kellerman from our community. Many of you know him, and Chris Sneed, who's part of our community, and he's our specialist, extension specialist in Tennessee. I am Dr. Laura Hendricks. I am an associate professor with Cooperative Extension Service, part of the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture here in Arkansas. We are headquartered in Little Rock. Our land grant is the Fayetteville campus. And we're going to, Jesse's going to get us started.
So thank you, Laura. And those that don't know me, my name is Jesse Kellerman. I'm an extension educator in the Western cluster of Maryland, and I focus on financial literacy. So it's a pleasure to be here today. And you know what I'm going to be talking about is introducing the pre-symposium. As you can see, our theme this year is "Our Time Has Come," and really what we're trying to do is focus on how we can build our network of financial education professionals, and in the process of doing that, address current and emerging issues in the field. So we're going to be meeting on the 19th, and that will be from 8 until 12. Again, that's a pre-symposium. Those that participate will be eligible for 4 CEUs for AFCPE certified professionals. And the great thing is breakfast and lunch will be provided. So you can enjoy breakfast and lunch as part of the symposium. And so as we move forward with the slide, we want to recognize all of the planning committee members. There's a whole team of us that have been working on this. And Laura, if you could, there we go. And so I'm not going to give a bio for each person, but I do want to give a shout out to everyone. Huge thank you to Maria and Travis and Christian, Barb, Sasha, Joe, myself, Laura, Karen, Chris, and Christina for all the work that we're putting into this, and as well as once we get to Portland. So next, please. And as I mentioned, there's our theme, financial education, our time has come. That's the pre-symposium theme. And our agenda, we're going to have registration at 7:30, followed by a welcome. And we're going to have a panel, and I'm going to give a quick bio of all the panel members. Then we're going to break into the panel roundtable discussions, where you'll be able to have a conversation with each of the panel members. Take a break, and then we're going to have a roundtable issues, which we're going to go through each of those issues here shortly, and we'll rotate those issues twice. And then after that, we'll adjourn for lunch and more opportunities for networking. And so our panel of partners, you can see we've invited representatives from several different areas. We have Scott Wola, who's the Economic Education Coordinator at the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, and he develops economics curricula. We have Susan Sharkley, who's the Senior Director of the High School Financial Planning Program for NEFI, and she continues in her work NEFI's legacy of providing quality learning experiences that empower teens and adults to make intentional financial decisions through every stage of life. We also have Ken McDonald, and he is the Financial Education Outreach Analyst at CFPB or CBFP, depending upon the name change there. Mr. McDonald is responsible for forming relationships and strategic partnerships with financial education nonprofits, K through 12 state educational programs, and organizations within the financial services industry. We also have Laura Levine, who is the Executive Director of the Jumpstart Coalition. And I'm sure you're kind of familiar with the Jumpstart Coalition, but it's there's 180 national partners with 48 affiliated state coalitions, which share that commitment of financially educating students from kindergarten through college. And then our final panel of partners is Shay Cook. And Shay is the CEO and founder of Crusaders for Change. And the Crusaders for Change mission is to empower and equip individuals with tools they need to become financially free through consultation, counseling, coaching, and classes. So that will be our panel of experts. And we'll have a presentation from each of those panel members. And then, as I mentioned before, there will be an opportunity to do a roundtable discussion with those individuals as well. And then our roundtable topics that we're going to have in the second part of the morning will include topics of farm and ranch financial stress, healthcare cost, transitioning to retirement, affordable housing, cost of living, health and wealth connection, long-term impact and evaluation of programming, working with volunteers, and finding and engaging new audiences. And so those are going to be our roundtable discussions. And again, we're gonna run that in a set of 2 series, so you can participate in one roundtable discussion and then participate in another one as well. And how we came up with those topics is we had a survey, and I believe Laura sent this out to the community of practice, and everybody kind of had an opportunity to evaluate which topics that they would like discussed at our pre-symposium. And those ones I just listed are the ones that came to the top of the list. So this is just kind of a graphic demonstration of, what came to the top of the list. In addition, there was an opportunity to have write-in topics, and one of the writing topics was housing cost. And so now I'm going to transition this over. I believe Chris is going to take it from here. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you so much. It's great to be with everyone. My name is Chris Sneed. I am an assistant professor and consumer economics specialist with the University of Tennessee Extension, and I am brand new to this appointment. My job actually started October 1st, so it's great to be with you all as I begin this new career. One of the things that we want to do in order to get you ready for talking about the issues is to really look at some background as to why these particular topic areas are important. So for the next few slides, what I'm going to do is actually go through and talk a little bit about each one of the issues, just to get you thinking about what you might want to discuss when we all get together in Portland. The first issue that we're going to be exploring in our roundtables deals with farm and ranch stress. And of course, we know that this has been a hot topic. It's been a hot topic coming out of USDA as well, particularly when we consider the increasing debt that many of our farmers and ranchers are experiencing, combined with some stressors and health-related conditions that have also been increasing. And that also goes along with a decrease in net farm income to create a really very challenging environment for our farmers and ranchers to be operating in. And of course, there is very unique opportunity for us as extension professionals to speak to some of these financial stressors. The second issue that we are going to be exploring should come as no surprise, and that is healthcare costs. We know as financial educators that healthcare has a profound impact on the health and financial well-being of all of our households. In fact, it has led households to skip medical care, and unfortunately, it is one of the major contributors to bankruptcy in the United States. We'll be tackling this very difficult and complex subject during our breakout sessions, in addition to the farmer and ranch stress. The third issue that we're going to be covering actually deals with retirement. But when we begin to talk about retirement, I think it's important that we situate this concept of retirement within the larger context of what's happening within the United States. And that is the shifting of the demographics and the graying of America, where we are having more and more Americans within that 65 plus demographic, and where we're also seeing a demographic shift or a demographic flip within the United States, where there are now more older Americans in 2030, we project, than there will be younger Americans. Of course, when we talk about this graying of America, on the next slide, we also have to talk about retirement. What I find very interesting, and I really love this graphic, is that many individuals, as they move toward retirement, come to realize that they are not ready for retirement. And in fact, right now, we're seeing more and more individuals move into retirement with what we call doorstep liabilities, with increasing debt liability that really is going to impact the amount of money that they have available to them and the amount of money that they have available to live on in their retirement years. So we will be talking about retirement and talking about this idea of aging as well as one of our issues that we'll be exploring in Portland. The next issue that we'll be talking about is one that the group had written in, and that deals with affordable housing and the cost of living. Right now, more than 11 million Americans pay more than half of their monthly income for rent. And this rate has increased over 30% over the past 5 years. You can combine this statistic with the idea that there's been a decrease in affordable housing stock. And that really creates a very complex and challenging situation where affordable housing is simply not available. And more American families are having to spend more of their take-home pay on just housing and costs of living. And we'll be exploring this in one of the breakout sessions as well. And the final breakout session that I'm going to be talking with you about deals with the health-wealth connection. You know, many times when we talk about financial well-being, we talk about healthcare and healthcare costs. But one of the issues that we would like to explore in our breakout time in Portland is the idea of a connection between health and financial well-being. And of course, we have Dr. O'Neill and her colleagues to thank for a lot of research that has happened in this area and for bringing this to the forefront. And we're going to be taking time to explore this more closely, including what we might be doing moving forward as we talk about a health-wealth connection. And now I think I'm going to be turning it over to Laura to talk about our final issue area that we'll be discussing.
Thanks, Chris. We're talking about the national effort in the Financial Security for All community of practice, our national effort to collect data nationally so that we can really show the impact that our work has. Here is an example of what we learned in 2018 on the outputs. 429 extension professionals in 21 states representing 708 counties, over 8,000 programs, and 263,933 consumers were reached. So this program is near and dear to my heart. We've been having conversations about doing this for a long time. We had a white paper out a couple of years ago, a briefing paper. I have copies of that I can share with you. I'd be happy to send to you. And this last year was our sort of our pilot year to get started. So this gives you a little snapshot of how many people we had reporting. And of those more than 8,000 programs, you can see that more than 2,000 had a post-program follow-up evaluation. Nearly 20,000 participants reported increasing knowledge, skills, and confidence. More than 32,000 plan to change behavior. and 729 reported making a change that actually resulted in improvement to their financial situation. Part of the reason I think this is so important is that we can show stakeholders the impact that we're having, how we're really helping people to become more financially secure. Here are the states we had reporting in 2018. So you can see we have a few other places we can still pull into the project, but we are very pleased with the amount of participation we had in this, what was our pilot year. So we'll be talking about the indicators and the states participating, how we can collect it, and what we can use with the data. So the guiding questions for you to start thinking about as we move toward our meeting and talk about these roundtable discussions, and as we visit with our partners, are: what is the critical issue? Why is this a critical issue? What is already being done? What resources do we already have? And what should be our next steps? So those are some of the things that you can think about as we move toward that meeting. We would love to be able to collect some ideas about resources that we already have in Extension to address these topics, and that we know that many of your states already have program materials. And additionally, our partners will be there so they can join in that discussion about what resources we have to address these and help us formulate what our next steps should be. So that's your call to action between now and the November symposium for our Extension Pre-conference, to think about those topics that we introduced you today, to think about how we can continue to work with our partners, build partnerships, and how we can collectively use all of the resources that we have to address these issues. And now we would like to take your questions and comments. So just feel free to, I believe you can actually unmute and talk, because we are in Zoom meeting format and not the webinar format. So we would welcome your questions and comments either way. Hi, Susan Sharkey. Thank you for joining us today. So the only comments I have in the chat so far are about the picture of the lovely woman with the gray hair on the Graying of America slide. And yes, I think she probably is a professor, Elizabeth. I recently did a program for some older senior citizen age group, and she is Instagram famous. And I talked to them about a trend in social media. I'm not really crazy about the term, but you'll hear it called granny fashion. And I think it's probably part of that big cohort of people who are aging, that aging demographic shift, that there are these older people who are becoming fashion icons, style icons in social media. So it's kind of a cool trend. Thanks for joining, Jerry. Appreciate you being here. Any other questions or comments? Anything else you need from us at this time?
So this is Maria and Pepitas from the University of Delaware Cooperative Extension. I was on the planning committee for our pre-conference, and I seem to recall that I think one of the ideas of the roundtables was to, begin the sharing, across the folks who are kind of sitting at those roundtables around the discussion of those issue areas. And I think the hope was that data would sort of be written down so that we can share it back out. and that, and so I guess I'm just sort of wondering about what that next step might be, and if there's a way for people who may be interested in that topic to continue working together through the community of practice.
I really like that idea, Maria. Thank you for bringing that up. So we will need to make sure that we have someone recording to capture everything that we discuss in the roundtables, and probably a sign-in sheet for them as well. And then someone to type up the notes afterwards so that those are available to everyone. And yes, I would love to see some kind of work groups organized around those topics within the community. So let's plan. Those of you who are part of this planning team, let's plan to have some sign-up sheets for the community for anyone who would like to continue in a work group to address any of these specific topics. Thank you, Maria. Appreciate that.
It's done.
Okay, good deal. Thanks, Maria.
Yep.
Oh, Susan Sharkey says hi to everyone. Had some trouble unmuting. Thanks. So glad to have you involved. Thank you, Susan. Thanks, Glenda. Glenda said she's looking forward to it. I am too, very much looking forward to being with this group again. Any other questions, comments, suggestions, anything before we wrap up today? Any final comments from Christine? Anything else?
No final comments from me. I look forward to meeting everyone in Portland.
Okay. Well, Chris has been around Extension in other capacities for quite a few years, so some of you may already know him, and he's always, in addition to his other FCS responsibilities, has always really liked the consumer economics and financial education part of what we do in FCS. So I'm delighted to have him on board in his new role. Thanks everyone for joining today, and we'll see you next month at AFCPE.